I have a hot take. This is actually a very legitimate leak. Windows 12 is going to suck.
The truth is, you keep saying you have some of these hot takes here. Dude, they're always ice cold. He thought blurring the camera would be enough to do it, except he hit the autofocus button instead of the blur button.
So in other words, he had it focus on his private parts. And hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the iTunes Fanboy Podcast. As always, I'm Teddy Macker from the iTunes Fanboy.
My name is Alpha DeWolf.
And as always, we have 8 topics today to cover. Yeah, it's not that many, but without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into our first topic, which is the Tesla Model Y Juniper.
Did you delete another topic, actually? I thought you had, like, the Tim Cook donating $1 million or something.
No, that was last week.
Oh, that was last week, so that just wasn't removed.
Yeah.
I don't remember. My memory sucks. Anywho, yeah, Tesla Model Y Juniper. How is my video on that performing so badly, by the way?
Some videos I expect to do really well just do badly, and then videos I don't expect to do well will wind up doing really well. Like, I did not expect my video on my video that I made 6 days ago as we're recording this on a review of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I did not expect that video to get
it's still stuck there. These metrics have not changed since this morning.
In fact, let me actually check YouTube right now.
It makes me wonder, is this YouTube Studio or is this actually how many it got? Because I'm very disappointed if that's the case. Yeah. No, that's how many it got.
Yeah, because my latest iPhone 13 Pro Max video, that is at 7.9 thousand views.
Really? Nobody actually cares about it?
At this point, Tesla doesn't exactly have the best reputation right now, so we have that,
I guess.
As politics aside, like, a lot of people just don't like Teslas in the first place.
But even then, it's still, like, the best-selling vehicle in the world still. Model Y.
Yeah. But, I mean, to be fair, like, also, like, at least for us, in that case, like, the Tesla Model Y because it's an SUV, it's the vehicle that we care the least about.
Yeah, true. I mean, I mentioned when I test drove the sexy lineup, the vehicle I was least interested in out of the entire lineup was the Model Y. It's not my type of vehicle. It didn't drive as well as the Model 3, despite it being the performance variant. Yes, I test drove the Model Y Performance while everything else was the long range. But even then, no, the Model Y is not my type of vehicle. And even then, I mean, no, right, the original Y that I first rode it, that even had a firm suspension for what it should. I don't know. But there's lots of major improvements that Tesla is bringing to it. Obviously, the new design. I personally am not a fan of it. I don't know what you think.
I like it.
You like this?
Except for the fact that it's an SUV, like, I like it.
Yeah, I don't think the cyber aesthetic works on it, though.
I personally like the cyber aesthetic, and again, this is where we're really differ, but I think the cyber aesthetic makes it look more unique compared to all the other cars on the road.
I guess.
And it gives more, and because the Cybertruck is such a signature vehicle, like my grandmother talks about how way back in the day, you used to be able to tell from a distance, like, what brand a car is. However, now until you get really close and can actually look at the logos of the cars, you can't tell that right away. However, a Cybertruck, on the other hand, like,
yeah.
Now, I don't ever see Cybertrucks on the road, but if you see a Cybertruck, you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
There's no mistaking any other vehicle for a Cybertruck.
I've seen 2 in the wild. There was one up here in town towing a trailer, which I thought was wild to see. And apparently, from what I hear, the guy who owns it is local. Well, maybe not like in town, but like the next town over or something.
I mean, yeah, that's because everybody talks about everybody's going to talk about a Cybertruck when it comes to
Yeah,
town.
so I hear that it doesn't. The owner does not live too far from town, but I've only seen it the one time in town. That's it. I've never seen it again. And then the other Cybertruck I saw was in Minocqua, actually. There's a supercharger there, and I pass through Minocqua all the time to get to central Wisconsin. So, yeah, I was lucky enough to see a Cybertruck passing through Minocqua one time.
Yeah, I've still never actually seen a Cybertruck in person, and that's just because, well, not only do I live in an area that's where gas cars are really dominant, but I also live in kind of it's kind the southeastern United States is not exactly known for being a hot. It is the low, like overall as a region, especially some parts of it are known for having some of the lowest incomes in the United States. So as a result, it's not that common to see Cybertrucks out in the wild.
But yeah, anywho, Cybertruck aside, why are we talking Model Y? That's right. New design, new light bars, interior got redressed. I'm surprised that it doesn't actually look completely identical to like Model 3 Highland.
I mean, maybe Tesla's just trying to differentiate their vehicles
Well, I
more.
was just shocked that they were going to do that because Tesla's philosophy is to make things as efficiently as possible, which means do as much parts sharing as possible. I mean, Model S and Model X, almost every single panel is identical except for what's in the roof line. And then you got the two Falcon Wing doors. Yeah, that's slightly different, but still, for the most part, Tesla does a crap ton of part sharing to the point where, like Model S and Model X's dashboards, I'm pretty sure they're basically the same. I'm surprised though that they made a different charge port, but still. The point is, Tesla is infamous for part sharing and borrowing so many parts designs across all of their vehicles to the point where a lot of people struggle to tell the difference between a Model Y and a Model 3 coming down the road. Now you should easily be able to tell, obviously, but still, I'm surprised
Yeah,
that
they
they wanted
probably
to
just
differentiate them that much.
probably because the Model Y and Model 3 are such different, are there more entry level vehicles as such, people aren't going to easily know the difference. Because I mean, the Model Y and the Model 3, personally, to me, they look very similar to each other. So I can definitely see why Tesla would want to change it up a little bit so that way it's much more obvious what you're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a new dressing on the interior. It has ventilated seats now. Might be more useful down where you live at the moment.
It's not that much warmer where I am compared to where you are, as it's currently, well, today is an exception. It's currently 40 degrees where I am right now.
What's it here? 27. Feels like 22. Yeah, that's what I'd agree with.
That's those type of temperatures are not too uncommon where I live though.
But hey, it'd be nice in the
But yeah,
summertime.
ventilated seats are definitely going to be a huge help, especially after last summer when there was a time in June, luckily it was June, not July, when my car's air conditioner decided that was a great idea to stop working. So as a result, I gave my car the nickname the Oven because it's a black car with that was so hot that I had to drive all four of its windows down and the fan running on full blast.
Yep, AC 460. That's what it's called.
Yeah, it's not. Is it pleasant? No. Does it work? No.
So, yep, air
But
conditioned
that's what people
seats.
used to do with their car.
Oh, there's a bit of a controversy with it. The turn signal stock.
What? Did they copy BMW?
Well, their turn signals have always been the same style BMW's been in. But the interesting thing is, Well, Tesla's been getting rid of their turn signals on all their vehicles, right? The S and X lost it in 2021 during that refresh, and then when Model 3 got updated, it lost its turn signal. Cybertruck never had a turn signal to begin with. And I'm talking like
Wait
the
a
stocks.
second. How are you? Oh yeah, I was about to say, kind of have to have turn signals.
Yeah, they have turn signals. I'm talking about the stocks. They all lost their turn signal stocks. But the interesting thing is, you'd think the Model Y would do the same. Again, Tesla likes to keep things consistent like that. Except images of right-hand drive Model Ys are showing there's a turn signal stock on them.
But the left side drives aren't.
We can't tell because we haven't found any images for left-hand drive on that side.
Maybe Tesla's trying to go back. Maybe Tesla's going to go back. Maybe Tesla's going to go back to turn signal. Since were there like buttons on the other Teslas for turn signals?
Yeah, they use buttons.
I mean, maybe they're going to go back to turn signal stocks. And the Model Y is just the first car to have that.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, they went back on the steering joke in the S and the X because you can now get them with a wheel by default. You remember the whole steering yoke incident?
No, I was 13 in 2021, so I was not an EV enthusiast.
All right,
I didn't really become an EV enthusiast until this podcast.
All right, let me pull up an image.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about, though. Is it like that half steering wheel type thing?
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, that stupid thing.
Yeah, that may.
The interesting thing, though, is they're still selling that option.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, let me scroll.
That's like buying like buying a laptop without a keyboard backlight. Oh wait, Dell does that. Dell does sell that.
I cannot believe Dell actually does that. That's just dumb. But yeah,
that's a reference to our last podcast episode, by the way.
Scroll up. Scrolling through this website's difficult. Anywho, oh wait, let's see. There's the interior. Okay, so we start off with the steering wheel. This is default.
Phew.
You can pay an additional $1,000 to get that joke.
Who would do that? That's like paying $1,000 for that's like charging $1,000 for a display stand. Not like we know any companies that do that.
No one would do that.
like sell a monitor for full $5,000 to $6,000 and then not include a stand and make you pay an additional $1,000. No one would do that.
Preposterous.
We're obviously being sarcastic in case you can't tell, because that's what Apple does.
Yep.
And has done for 6 years.
You know, I still can't believe they haven't updated this display in this long.
My voice I hadn't even hit I was in elementary school when the Pro Display XDR last got released. I'm in 10th grade now. As I was in between 4th and 5th grade when the Pro Display XDR was announced.
I'm also shocked that despite its price tag, it's still only limited to 60 hertz.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, ProMotion existed in 2019.
Oh yeah. In fact, if I recall, Apple introduced the feature in 2017 with the
they did.
2nd gen iPad Pro.
Oh my gosh, like Apple.
And yet we have MacBooks with, I'll say, similar, maybe even better quality displays than that Pro Display XDR. And they have ProMotion. And yet
they're cheaper than the Pro Display.
Yeah, and this monitor costs how much?
$6,000 when you include the stand.
Yeah, right, because you got to buy a stand to come with it. So $6,000. it needs help. That monitor actually needs help because we have a higher quality panel on our MacBook Pros, and Apple doesn't make a monitor to match it. That's just sad.
That truly is. But shall we move on to our next topic, which is, I don't know if it's sad or not, but it's kind of interesting.
Oh, the Sony car?
Yeah, Sony and Honda are working together to create a car, and they're going to call it the Ophelia EV.
Just Afila. That's how it's pronounced. Afila.
Yeah.
And I feel like this one's not gonna do so hot. Wow.
It's $89,000.
I'm so bad at puns.
That was actually a good pun, though.
Yeah. Anywho, there are so many issues with this car, and I actually hope it does not ship as is. First up, it has a 90-ish kilowatt-hour battery pack. That's halfway between Model 3 and Model S long-range battery pack size. It's right in between there, and yet it can't even break the 300-mile mark.
People are very, very concerned about range when buying EVs, especially an $89,000 EV.
So yeah, considering the battery pack size and just for context, Model 3 in out of specs, 70-mile-an-hour range test in its most efficient spec, it did like 385 miles. Let me actually work out what the efficiency number that is, because I do want to. Let me see, calculator. So we have an 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Oops, wait, 82,000 watts divided by 385 miles. I got it backwards. All right, let's see. 385
miles divided by kilowatt. That's how you solve it.
Divided by, jeez, 82 kilowatt hours. That thing averaged 4.7 miles per kilowatt hour in their 70-mile-an-hour range test. That's Model 3 long range. So if we take a look at the Sony Afila, let me see. I'll say 290 because it's just under 300. 290, I don't remember the exact number spec it is. Divided by 90 kilowatt hours. I need to remember, is this an SUV or a sedan? Because I haven't actually looked at it that much.
I think it's a sedan.
Sony Afila. Oh, dude. Ioniq 6 does better than this.
The Ioniq 6 costs how much less again? I know it's a lot.
Hyundai Ioniq 6 base model, best range spec possible, is only $2,000 more expensive than the Tesla Model 3.
Well, I'd say this Afila EV is a ripoff.
So, that's not even my biggest complaint. So,
how can this get worse?
There's two other complaints I have, actually. Number one, the advertised charging performance.
Oh no. Is this going to be like a typical Japanese EV? Well, it is a Japanese EV, but
so, this will have the highest peak of any current Japanese car out there that's shipping electric cars. So it's higher than Nissan. It's higher than Toyota. Definitely higher than Mazda. Mazda just sucks. I'm sorry. It charges at a whole whopping 150 kilowatts peak. peak.
That doesn't sound like I'm not an EV expert, but that doesn't sound like a lot.
No. I mean, to be honest, that's like bare minimum acceptable, but in order for most people to justify that, it has to be a cheap car. If you're paying roughly that much, then you need to break into the let me think, at least over 200 kilowatts. Maybe closer to 250.
Yeah, I'd say Sony's and Honda have got some things to work out.
I'm trying to think of any other expensive vehicle that can't even go past 150 kilowatts. The only one I'm thinking of is just the Ford F-150 Lightning.
And that's a pickup truck.
Yeah, and that's like the top end trim. You can get F-150 Lightnings for cheaper than that. Meanwhile, the Afeela is starting at $90-ish thousand. What? So, yeah, it doesn't have the range. It doesn't have good charging. And then another crucial thing that a lot of EV makers need to get right, software. It's bad. It's real bad.
Well,
like, it is disgustingly, terribly bad.
On a scale of Windows Vista to Windows 11, how bad is it?
Well, they're all in their own Z tier, so I never actually experienced Vista, so I wouldn't know. But you know, Windows 10 has been by far the worst operating system I've ever worked with. Windows 11 isn't as bad, but it's not by a huge margin, if I'm being honest. So I'll say we're talking like Windows 10 levels of bad. It's pretty bad.
Maybe it is just rebadged Windows.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, Sony is.
But yeah, there's nothing about this car that makes sense at all. With the specs that it's at least advertising at the given price point, just no. No way. Absolutely not.
Maybe Sony and Honda have decided to tap into the artificial intelligence train.
I was disappointed in Honda. I thought initially a year ago was when they came out with the Prologue, which we know is a GM vehicle underneath the hood. But I thought, okay, they're partnering up with GM and they're going to learn how to make an actual EV, a proper EV, unlike what Nissan, Mazda, and Toyota have done. But just looking at this product, and again, Honda's the one who's making this. I mean, it's Sony branded and everything, but Sony doesn't make cars. So, dude, the Japanese, they don't got it. They don't got it at all.
And once again, and I'm not this. I know this is not exactly going to be the nicest thing to say, but but one key problem I think that might cause this is just because number one, in Japan, a lot of people primarily take trains, so as a result, cars aren't necessarily. And again, Japan's not as big; it's just a series of islands, so people aren't necessarily quite as concerned about range there. But number two, they have a massive aging population crisis, so as a result, a lot of the people there are actually in charge of designing these EVs are older.
The weird thing, though, is that their car market, despite, yes, they have the trains and all that, their car market is still fairly large, too.
Yeah, their car market, I mean, their car, I'm not saying that their car market isn't small, it is smaller, I think, but I mean, again, like, when you factor in that there are still trains and less need for range, and, again, older people, too, like, that's a bit.
They must
like Honda
they must
CEO
be older people because their official charging standard for the nation is still CHAdeMO.
Yeah. I mean, you know that the CEO of Honda that was appointed in 2021 was already like in his early 60s when he was appointed.
Oh gosh.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, granted, I know Japan's a different culture than America, but who would you... Well, if you had the choice between... Let's say you ran a company and you had the choice between appointing a 20... a Now, let's say a 30-year-old as CEO...
Yeah, that'd be more appropriate.
Or a 60-year-old as CEO. Who would you rather do? Or put in?
I mean, there's many other factors aside from age, but I'd probably
Like,
want the younger one.
let's say they have the same qualifications. Like, yeah, but I would say too, because younger people are going to be able to serve companies for much, much longer, which is why.
And they're also not stuck in old ways.
Yes, true, because older people have a tendency to be stuck in older ways. And that's just a very, unless they're inventors, then they don't necessarily understand the concepts of new technologies.
You know, I have to go on another side tangent. I am so worried about the next Toyota EV that's coming. They're making a 3-row. I am so terrified of when it's coming. Just because I know it's going to be bad now. The unfortunate thing with the Japanese is back in like the 2000s, that era, that decade, that was like when they peaked at their engineering. Everything.
Yes,
I see so many 2000s Toyotas and Hondas on the road still. And for good reason. They were very well engineered and they are very reliable cars. The problem is when you land on something that big, and like the big selling point, and you can't argue them for driving home the selling point, reliability. The problem is when you actually make a proper reliable vehicle, you then have to throw in this, well, if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. And as a result, their products had ended up aging, and now they are so far behind because they're trying to keep that reputation of reliability, but because they're so far behind in seeing what the industry is doing, they've failed to adapt. And it's not even just a problem in the EV space. Toyota is having issues in the combustion space.
Yeah, that's like back in 1973 when the US had a massive oil crisis, that because American EV makers because American car makers failed to keep up and made horrible inefficient cars, as a result Japanese companies like Datsun, who later became Nissan, Honda, and then Toyota, either Toyota, Mitsubishi, or Nissan, one of those, or no, Mazda, one of those companies managed to take over the car market because they made efficient cars that people actually liked.
And they also made them pretty darn reliable too.
Yes, but now, like, why would I, like, especially now that I'd much rather support an American made cars. Like, why would I buy a Japanese car at this point?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a dying trend in Japanese cars in the US when the EV transition takes a bigger leap forward than where it's currently at, because though even still, like, I'm disappointed in they've been having massive issues on a lot of their other combustion products. Like we talked about the Toyota Corolla GR last time, how their engines are like literally exploding, and Toyota is denying warranty for it. Then they're also having issues with their new engine that's supposed to replace the tried and true 5.7 liter V8 they had in pretty much all of their trucks. Actually, the new iForce Max has been having a lot of issues.
And furthermore, it's not just the car industry it's being affected. Japanese car industry it's being affected for. Their tech industry is so far behind, because back in the early 2000s, 90s, and 80s, you had Sony had so many products back then, like the Walkman.
Yes.
And the Watchman and the Vaio. well, the Vinyl was a collaboration, and then you had and then there wasn't just Sony. You had Sharp was in the phone space,
Right.
and then you had Matsushita, Panasonic,
Mitsubishi.
Casio.
Yeah, Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi's Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, Casio. You had all these Japanese tech companies take over the industry because they genuinely made good products. However, the problem is that they also failed to adapt to modern technology.
Yeah, and it's showing. We've already seen in their tech industry and now the automotive industry, it's starting to show too that they're failing to adapt.
For the only tech firm Japanese tech firm that isn't clearly failing to adapt in some way or shape or form is Nintendo, and I think that's because Nintendo is largely a firm that doesn't need that's a little bit safer, because Nintendo isn't necessarily known for making like the best bleeding edge stuff, but they're known for making stuff fun.
Oh yeah.
But furthermore, Nintendo is also, like, again, with video games, animation is a big part of video games, and of course, Japan is very well known for anime, so...
I really do not like anime.
No. But they're well known for animation, so
Yeah.
as a result, Nintendo can manage to survive. However, the other tech giants and Japanese tech giants are failing to keep up.
Kind of sad, because it means less competition now.
I mean, this is probably not going to happen anytime soon because of trademark infringements. But if BYD manages to get into the U.S. car market, then
it's not if, it's when. Because if I recall, these tariffs are just on goods that are made outside of the U.S. What if BYD decides, hey, let's go build a factory in the U.S.?
They can't do that unless they engineer entirely new cars, because
they could though.
Their cars are basic.
The thing is though,
no, they can't.
You'll be surprised what's going on in the Chinese automotive market right now.
You don't understand how Chinese copyright laws work. Basically, China refuses to recognize Western copyright from the Western Hemisphere. Therefore, their tech firms can legally rip off their firms, because they're all controlled by the Chinese government. They can rip off anything they want to. So as a result, BYD is basically ripped off all of the even Korean automakers. Like, they've ripped all of them all off in terms of designs and such. So as a result, they couldn't legally sell their cars in the United States even if they made them, unless they did some massive tweaking as a result to hike their car prices up.
The thing is though, if they wanted to come up with their own original design, which, let's be honest here, how many are left? All cars are kind of starting to look the same in many regards. So, yeah, that whole thing aside, if BYD wanted to make their own car, their own design and all that, they don't need that much time. They can develop it in a whole year, unlike most automakers today. They need like about 5 to 6 years to develop a whole new car. Not BYD.
Well, that's
they can do
Chinese
it in a year or
automakers.
less.
That's because Chinese companies are well known for stealing.
But even then, Kyle Connor, out of spec right now, is currently in China, and actually their EV tech, kind of gotta be honest here, it's kind of looking a lot better than what we've got right now. Like, their battery technology is years ahead what we have in both the US and Europe. I just saw a tweet today. Kyle was in a car and it was at 80%. Typically at 80%, most of the time your car's not pulling above 100 kilowatts. It's usually somewhere between 20 and 80, somewhere in there. He was charging a Chinese electric car above 80% at 250 kilowatts.
Wow.
That's Chinese battery tech.
I'm not saying it's not advanced, but another concern the U.S. government would have is that they would have to probably have a U.S. firm acquire BO, or else a firm outside China acquire BYD entirely, because now, first of all, BYD is still technically controlled by a Chinese government, which is, especially with EV software, like that's a massive security concern. So you can't have Chinese software going into the United States. So there are reasons why BYD probably why
There'll be
BYD still has some
hurdles.
strangleholds.
There'll be hurdles. But if they really wanted to jump through those hurdles, I'd have no doubt that they could.
I have significant doubts that BYD could.
So yeah, I really don't think it's an if. I do think it is a when. They will come at some point.
But I think even if BYD doesn't manage to come, people are gonna start event like BYD, like we can offer and we can like meet like there is a way that we could, like again, a U.S. firm could buy like Tesla could do a BYD acquisition possibly, because Tesla's based in the United States and BYD doesn't sell in the United States. They could legally acquire BYD and then get all their battery tech and integrate it into Teslas.
Though with the way that BYD's been performing, there's no way. Because like BYD is Tesla's biggest competitor in China right now.
Other countries don't have antitrust laws quite like the United States, except for, oh yeah, the EU, but the EU again. F U EU.
Yes. So yeah, I would not be shocked if when they eventually make their way here. Just
Yeah.
there's a lot of legal stuff right now, yes, but if they're determined, they will make it. And when they do come, it's going to be so freaking hard to compete with them.
There is one way that I do think BYD could gain a significant amount of market share in the United States is if the Democratic Party takes over in the next election.
Oh, let's not get political
I think
like that. Please.
If they take over, then BYD might be able to come. However, otherwise,
The thing is, though,
BYD is probably going to get
that doesn't make
locked
sense
out.
because what Biden did, he's the one who actually placed the 100% tariff on Chinese EVs.
Yes, but he allowed other Chinese software to, like, the Chinese government paid TikTok personally paid Joe Biden and his administration to allow it to get rid of the TikTok ban.
I still hope it gets banned at some point. Though, yeah, of
Yes.
course, because
Yeah, same here.
that'd be a lot of money lost considering the sad number of users TikTok has. So, anywho, yeah, that's enough Chinese EV talk. It seems like almost this entire show is going to be about electric cars because we got like how many of those topics in a row?
4. But
Yeah.
all right, let's go ahead and move on to our next. Shall I move on to our next topic, which is another one that's embracing AI.
The all-electric Jeep Wagoneer S.
Yes, Chrysler, like that whole automotive group has finally decided to jump aboard the EV train. But this time, they decided to release a vehicle in 2025 of CCS Type 1! Oh my, CCS Type 1! Chrysler's not going to make, or I know it's
know
technically
what's
SCA now,
sad?
but they're...
Do you really want to know what's sad?
What?
It was just last month that press drives had begun for the Dodge Charger Daytona electric vehicle. Guess what charge port they're using?
CCS Type 1?
And then supposedly Jeep's working on a smaller EV called the Recon. Guess what's in the rumors for that?
Oh my. No, no, please don't tell me.
CCS Type 1.
Oh my gosh.
They're not going to make it.
No, their gas vehicles are way too crappy. Their gas vehicles are too crappy. Their EVs are too crappy. This company is not going to make it.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it... Just...
Especially because, hang on, I actually have something to grab.
Oh, really?
In my living room for this. I'll be back in a second. I have to be careful when showing this because this is a Dodge hat to one of my former local dealerships. But let me find where it actually says like the personal. Okay, this right here is a Dodge hat, and as you can tell, it's one Dodge is known for making powerful sports cars. Yes, this is an actual hat I have.
Yeah.
What about a CCS Type 1 port? Screams powerful sports car.
Screams dated tech, and dated tech doesn't necessarily mean power.
No, it does not. I'm gonna put this back. Alright, now that I'm back, one thing I'm noticing about the decline of Chrysler and Mazda and all those other companies is that ultimately it's clear, like we all know how when the iPhone released, how some of the old school some of the previous phone companies that were successful survived while others didn't.
Yep.
This is clearly true of the EV space, and I think it's safe to say that right now, the German, like BMW, Mercedes, the Volkswagen Group, and Volvo all have a pretty good leg up in the EV transition.
Yeah, they're pretty safe.
Ford and GM seem to be doing not horribly either.
GM, I believe, will make it because so far from what I've seen, especially at our dealership, the Equinox... The second basically, when they get an Equinox, it's gone in under a week. They cannot keep them on the lot. And then there was one time I brought my car in for service. There were 5 Chevrolet Blazers all lined up in a row on the lot. When I dropped my car off for service, when I went to go pick my car up, all of them were gone. All the Blazers were gone in the sold lot. So they've got some desirable products. And because I think an advantage that GM has over Ford is they've diversified their lineup. Because right now, what does Ford have for electric vehicles? They only have 3 in the market. There's the Mach-E.
Well, the Mach-E was discontinued.
No, it's not discontinued. They're still selling it.
No.
Yeah?
No. No, Mach-E.
Where did you hear that? They are still selling that thing.
My dad told me that they discontinued them. No. Oh my gosh, they're still making this stupid Mach-E. Okay, let me give some advice to Ford right now. If anybody at Ford is watching this, you know that new Dark Horse you just released? Yeah, make an electric version of the Dark Horse. Like give us an EV in that body.
Yeah.
Not an SUV. Like the Mach-E should be rebranded as the Explorer EV.
More like the Escape. I don't think it's as big as an Explorer, but still, like the Escape or the Edge, whatever.
Like just call it the Escape or Edge EV.
Yeah.
Ford.
Yeah, they're still selling that thing. They haven't stopped.
Oh.
So yeah, they have that, the F-150 Lightning, and the Ford E-Transit. That's it.
Ford might possibly want to wait to expand their EV lineup because, again, Ford seems to be a little bit skeptical about EVs at the moment, and so they're just primarily focusing on gradually growing their EV division.
Yeah, they finally found something, though, that is actually working. Yeah, they found something that's getting their cars off the lots. They're including their up to 80 amp charger, and they will pay for an install. And it is actually making sales. In fact, I heard that this program was actually so successful that they extended it. It was supposed to expire at the start of 2025, but it was so successful they decided to extend it.
Yeah, I like this idea. I like Ford's doing a lot, especially because a lot of times you have to pay quite a lot of money to get EV chargers installed in your home, and a lot of people don't want to do that.
That, and it's a heck of a lot better than the other alternative, which a lot of automakers had thought was a great idea back in 2020, 2021, 2022. They were giving out free 30-minute DC charging sessions at Electrify America for 3 years.
Free charging is so stupid because here's the problem with free charging. It unnecessarily hogs up public chargers.
Yep.
That are supposed to be used by long-distance drivers, and that's a problem because, again, humans are creatures of habit. They're not going to know, hey, we should be charging at home, especially because of all the bad press on EVs charging in garages. Well, I mean, I don't have a garage, but still, when I get an EV, I'm going to be charging it at home and not you'd hog up the public chargers unless I go on road trips.
Yeah, then another reason, I've heard that a lot of people who did get these electric vehicles with these free charging programs, some of them would already have a charger at their house, but because, hey, electricity still costs money at my house, but it doesn't at the public charging station, that was enough to convince some people to stop charging at home. That was bad. That was really bad. Because
that was bad.
Yeah, there was nothing good about that. I think only today, really expensive automakers with really expensive products like Lucid, they still offer something similar to this, though it's only for 1 year, I think, instead of the 3 years initially. And like the only products I can think that can still do this are Lucid Air. I would not be shocked if the Gravity had this as well. And then the Porsche Taycan and the Macan, because they're expensive products. But for cheaper products like Volkswagen doesn't do this anymore. I don't think Audi does either. So, yeah, good. Yeah, Ford did the right thing, and it's working so well that they extended the program. I like this. So, Ford's having a tough time right now because they had depleted a lot of their finances and they got the board upset. So, I can understand their slowdown. Though, if I'm being honest, it won't be long before they actually should probably update their portfolio, because the Mach-E, obviously we don't like the body design it's in right now, but even if they had to keep
Just call it.
it's getting old.
Just call it a Ford Edge.
Even then, it's getting old.
Yeah, it is.
Like, at this point, we've got so many other cars that are breaking the 200 kilowatt charging mark. It's time Ford breaks it too. A lot of Ford EV owners will say it isn't that big of a deal for them because they don't road trip frequently enough to be bothered by its slower charging speed. Though the F-150 Lightning's charging speed, that considering the battery pack size, that's an abomination, and it needs to be more.
Yeah, I understand. But do you have anything more to say about this, or shall I move on to our next topic? Which is finally not about EV.
Well, actually, I do have one more EV thing, and this is probably going to make you mad, actually, because this involves Mercedes.
What is Mercedes doing?
Let me go grab something.
Oh. No, I know what Mercedes is doing. Don't tell me. Don't tell me they went back.
Here's what they're doing. So they announced their plans to transition to NACS. But here's how they plan on handling it when they actually put the ports on their vehicles. As we know, NACS, the connector I'm holding here, the lighting's not good enough so you can see the whole thing, but this standard is both an AC and a DC standard, right?
Oh, I know what they're doing.
So here's what they're going to do. Their plan is to put NACS on the car and only use it for DC charging. If you want to AC charge and charge at home, they want you to use this.
Mercedes! We have some... Mercedes, I'm a Mercedes owner and I have some concerns to express with them. Because, I mean, I'm already probably going to get a Tesla, but it would be nice to own another Mercedes, although I have a feeling that might backfire on Mercedes pretty quickly.
I hope it does. And so I'm going to make a video about this at some point. I am going to raise the biggest stink about this. Because, again, this is both an AC and a DC connector. And they're only making use of half of it. Oh! What were they thinking? What were they thinking? Oh, God.
I don't know.
I mean, from one perspective, a lot of people already have this type of connector in their homes, be it from current Mercedes products that they already have, or maybe other older electric cars that still charge via this standard. So their thinking probably is, oh, when you're AC charging, you're most likely going to be doing that at home. And most people have this type of charger installed in their house. So
I don't. 'Cause what about the people that don't have EV chargers yet?
Or what about the public AC charging stations out there?
Mercedes, fix that.
Yeah, I'm gonna raise a really big stink about this. Like, I did that when it came to Kia's adapter. We don't need to talk about that here, but well, Kia did something I didn't like. I rose a big stink about it, and now Mercedes is about to do something that I don't like, and it's unnecessary. They only need one charging port. Now they're going to add a whole second port to the car.
What did Kia do again? Oh.
Kia,
yeah, I know what Kia did.
Yeah, the adapter.
The adapter, let me think. Did they do something with the locking mechanism, or...
No, the problem is the amperage rating.
Too many amps?
No, too little. Actually, I've recently learned that adapter technically will not comply with UL's safety standard for it. Because in order to apply for the UL safety standard, UL is basically the company that certifies, okay, yeah, this electric product is safe to use. It's one of the bodies that safety certifies products. In order to apply for UL safety certification, the adapter needs to be able to handle 500 amps continuous. Kia's adapter cannot. And yet they're going to ship it to customers.
That's not sketchy.
Yeah, totally not sketchy. I mean, hey, it's fine if they only use it with their Kia products. The thing is, come on, guys. You totally know that these owners are going to use this adapter for more than just their Kia products. So,
Yeah, there's going to be some lawsuits about this, I feel, but
yeah. I'm
shall I
still
move
mad
on now
Mercedes.
to
Mercedes, what the heck are you thinking?
Yeah.
And you're supposedly a German engineer. One of the most amazing engineers on the planet for automotive. This ain't amazing engineering.
No.
So wasteful.
It's called stupidity.
So yeah, I'm gonna raise a big stink about this. You and I both, because you're a Mercedes fan, and I'm a Mercedes fan too. Guess what cars my grandmother drove?
Mercedes.
Yep. Until she got the Chrysler 200. I don't know why she got that instead of another Mercedes, but still, she was a big Mercedes fan, and I'm a big Mercedes fan, and I am disappointed in this as a Mercedes fan. All right. Enough connector talk. Let's talk about the actual thing what this podcast is for. Tech.
Alright, so the Nintendo Switch 2 trailer has released, and further details will be revealed at the event in April. But basically, the biggest things that Nintendo did with the Switch 2 is they made the Joy-Con. They made the ad kind of like the iPad Pro change ad for 2018. But in other words, in simpler terms, they basically changed the color of the Joy-Cons to be black with blue and red accents. And then or blue and pink accents, excuse me, and then they made the screen larger, but the bezels are still kind of big on the Switch 2. And the dock is still smaller than the Switch 2 itself. Which looks a little bit odd to me, but
well, Nintendo wasn't necessarily the greatest at electronic design, just game design.
yeah, that is true. I mean, to be fair, Nintendo is more of a gaming company, so I guess I shouldn't be harping on them too much, but yeah, but will be further deals will be revealed in April. I don't know if I already said that.
I just wish they'd bring back the Wii.
Yeah,
I say this every time, but that's because it's so true.
Yeah.
It literally is their best gaming console ever.
Truly is. Alright, shall I move on to our next topic that no one is talking about, but still actually kind of fascinating? I don't know if this is fascinating or not, but
A shoe scanner.
so, for context, in the United States, you have to go through all sorts of safety stuff in order to get on a plane. Or you have to go through all sorts of checks to get on a plane. Yeah, everybody loves going through TSA checks.
Yeah, just so you guys know, it is highly not recommended to board a plane at 3 in the morning. Because when you go through TSA, the people who you will talk to are rude, very inconsiderate, and just, yeah, they're awful people to deal with. Especially if you're going through for your first time. The first time I ever went through airport security, TSA, was at 3 in the morning in Milwaukee. And the TSA staff were just awful. They were rude and condescending. I was trying to ask questions, what am I supposed to do? And they wouldn't answer them. They just say, come on, get moving. I'm like, what the blank am I supposed to do here? I've never been through here. And they're like, come on, just get through. I'm like, in the most angry and condescending demeanor. And then I had one of those items where, I guess my sunscreen tube is too big, could contain explosive material or whatever. So they decided to take that away.
God.
And then just
Did they give it back? Did they give it back to you when you came back to Milwaukee?
no.
They should have. They should have just held it until. They should have just withheld it until you got back at least.
What drove me nuts is this guy's like, what do you want me to do with this? It's like, I don't know. If I can't take this with me and you're just going to steal it from me, then it's your problem, not mine.
And mind you, I have to go through TSA next to TSA.
Rudest people on the
summer.
planet, especially at 3 a.m. So never go through TSA at 3 a.m. or anytime at night.
Hopefully I'll board TSA during the daytime. And I also plan to get TSA clearance so that way I don't have to go through quite as much of our stuff. But we were rambling about TSA, but the reason why we brought up TSA is because they came out with a new shoe scanner that's supposed to make the shoe scanning process quicker.
Searching for illegal drugs, I'm betting? Maybe
No,
weapons.
so... Well, yeah, because there. From what I heard, there was this one guy who boarded a plane who tried to hide a bomb in his shoe, and consequently now, everybody's got to take their shoes off now. But
Yep.
NASA will apparently scan shoes.
Well, they scan a lot more than just your shoes, by the way.
I know they scan a lot more than just shoes.
Yeah, let's just say one of their scanners basically has the quite literal ability to take your clothes off.
That should be illegal.
They have to, though, for security purposes. Gotta find the weapon, if there is one.
I hate to admit it, but maybe they should. I hate to admit it, but maybe you should just have rules about people of maybe they should just say like, look, maybe they should just not let people with criminal records that could easily be harmful get on planes. Like,
But what
for
about
example,
first-time offenders? You never know who's going to be a first-time offender.
Depends on their age, though.
Yeah, that just wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a perfect solution. But I'm just saying, and I'm not a legal expert, but I'm just saying, like, they definitely need to fix how TSA works.
Yeah, that's another reason why I just don't like flying in general. First up, I hate
Yeah, that's
heights.
why.
I really hate heights. And people say, oh, you're in a plane and you're surrounded by these walls. You don't have the sensation that you're like a mile or two off the ground. Yeah, you guys are very wrong about that, by the way. Because guess what I had both times I was flying? The sensation that I was a mile or two off the ground.
And furthermore, my dad asked me, hey, do you want to fly to like a city? Like my dad, even for domestic road trips, like even for cities that are like 5 hours away from me, he asked like, hey, do you want to fly to this city? And I'm like, no, I'm not flying somewhere 5 hours away from here. Because I hate to admit this, but I'm not going to go through TSA just to go through to a city that's 5 hours away from me.
I'd rather drive. Yeah, as long as I don't need to go overseas, I am avoiding flying altogether. It's just...
Yeah, same.
It's a bigger nightmare than I think some people are willing to admit.
Yeah. Oh.
Then you got Boeing, too.
Yeah. Like, why would you want to unnecessarily get on a plane?
Especially if it's a Boeing plane that we all know is not very well put together.
Exactly, and I accidentally bumped my head because I had to put my Z Flip back on stack, and I accidentally bumped my head against my bedside table.
So
that's a fun feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, try controller box for a CNC machine that's made of metal.
Please tell me you have not hit you've hit your head on that.
Just once. Reaching
Did you
down
get a
to
concussion?
grab some material, and then I come back up, smack right into the controller.
That sounds painful.
Yep, especially because the controllers do not go up and down, just sideways. Anywho, yeah, that's a nightmare at TSA.
All right, shall we move on to what this podcast is actually about, which is about Apple, because we have 2 more Apple rumors to cover.
Yeah, we have, despite being the iTunes fanboy podcast, we've had so little Apple-related topics to even talk about. There's just not that much.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because it's in the middle of January, and Apple doesn't usually do press releases in January or new products in January anymore.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had the Vision Pro.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the 20-year anniversary of the first iPod Shuffle happened recently. This is now 20.
Alright, so what do we have here? M4 Max and M4 Ultra?
Yeah, the Mac. So there's a new Mac Studio that was rumored to debut this June.
I would have thought it would come during, like, March, April, or May or something like that.
To be fair, the 2023 Mac Studio was last updated in June, so it makes sense, especially if they're rumored to update the Mac Pro, that they would update the Mac Studio. Because Apple generally doesn't like to leave their products more than one generation of silicon behind.
Yeah, how many generations of silicon is the iPad 10 behind in right now?
It has the A14 chip, which was already 2 years old when it released, and the A4 and the iPad 10 generation is coming up on 3 years old this September. So technically, when you consider we're running on almost 5-year-old silicon.
Yikes.
There are some kids that are going to be using iPad 10th generations that are younger than the A14 chip.
And yet somehow that iPad is still better than most other iPads out there.
And the A14, mind you, I think it actually debuted in the Air 4, if I'm not mistaken. Let me actually look up on Apple's website.
A14, yeah, I think it was the Air 4.
It was the A14 or A14X. Let me look.
We never got an A14X. A12X was the
Oh,
last
that's when
one.
they stopped.
Yeah. A12X was the last one. Then they did an A12Z, and then we got the M1 in the iPad Pro.
Yeah, so the iPad Air 4 has the A14. Yeah, that was the Yeah, that was the so that silicon released in September 2020 in Apple. So basically, it's running on was now at least 4-year-old silicon, and mind you, I got my first iPad when I was almost 3.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, iPadOS runs no different on a device with the latest of Apple Silicon. It runs no different compared to an Apple device with silicon from 5 years ago.
It's kind of pathetic.
It is. That's why I keep saying this thing is so overpriced for what it is. That's my latest video on the Gadgets channel, by the way.
I saw. In other news, I guess I am the king of this Discord chat.
Why do you say that?
Because there's a little little emoji that comes up right next to my name for some reason.
I don't see it on my end.
Okay.
Yep, I don't see it.
All right. All right, getting back on topic, shall I move on to the AirTag 2? And then the latest rumor for that.
Coming that late? Really?
Yeah, so the AirTag 2, which mind you, this has been updated since April 2021, so before my voice dropped and back when I was in 6th grade, the AirTag 2 is now going to supposedly wait to come out until late 2025.
It's taking
It's
so
apparently been
long.
delayed. Apple must really be doing something, or else Apple must be really doing something, and they're either going to do something really awesome with the AirTag 2, or else they're focusing so much time on Apple Intelligence that the AirTag doesn't matter.
You know, it probably is the latter.
Yeah, because I know back when macOS 10 Leopard was supposed to debut back in October. It actually debuted in October 2007, because 2007 was obviously the year of the first iPhone. The release of that got delayed twice because Apple's teams were so overwhelmed with the iPhone that they had to give the Mac a back. They had to give the Mac a back seat for a little bit.
It just makes me so angry, even more with Apple BS, as I call it. Because, one, we all know it's bad. Like, you look on the internet, it seems like, what's their satisfaction rate? Like, under 25%?
Yeah.
It's that bad. And because they focus so heavy on a very underwhelming, less than subpar product, and put all of their other great products aside, iOS 18 is buggy as heck.
Yeah, and what doesn't, and I mean, to be fair, at least what you can argue about Apple from 2007 to 2011 is, whilst the Mac may have taken like a little bit more of a, even though Apple was so focused on growing iOS that they did from 07 to 2010, they didn't bring new features to the Mac necessarily. I mean, they still did a lot of stuff to the Mac in that time, but they didn't do quite as much compared to the other divisions. However, no one complained about Macs during that period. In fact, Apple released macOS 10 Snow, which is considered to be one of the best macOS versions of all time. And it was released the same year that Windows 7 came out, mind you. Which is why Apple came up with the slogan "Back to the Mac" for Mac OS 10 line, which unveiled in 2010.
It's just a shame. It's another reason why I'm angry at Apple's AI crap.
Yeah, but we've gone into that in so many episodes, though. So shall we move on to our final topic?
Oh, speaking of other companies with artificial intelligence.
Yes, so, well, literally and figuratively. So,
Yes.
Microsoft is going to redesign Windows again. But you know what it's going to have this time? An Xbox-like UI. Now, I'm not an expert. Now, actually, I sort of am an expert, but isn't that what Microsoft sort of tried with Windows 8? And how did Windows 8 go again?
And how many businesses use this operating system?
Businesses and schools are Microsoft's core markets.
You said they had artificial intelligence literally and figuratively. No, I only mean literally. They literally have artificial intelligance.
Yeah.
There is no figuratively.
I mean, they have both.
They literally have it in both ways.
That wasn't a way to say, a good way to say it. I guess what I should say is that they have two kinds of artificial intelligence. One subset is the artificial intelligence that we all know, and then the other kind is is fake intelligence,
or it's our way of saying stupid people.
Yeah.
What are they thinking?
Windows. I have a hot take. This is actually a very legitimate leak. Windows 12 is going to suck.
The truth is, you keep saying you have some of these hot takes here, Dude, they're always ice cold. This is Microsoft we're talking about here. When's the last time they improved upon software?
That's why I was being sarcastic. I mean, granted, when you build your operating system off of a clone of a legitimate operating system in the first place, then gee, obviously it's not going to do well. Because yes, Windows is based off of MS-DOS, which was based on 86, which was previously 86-DOS, which was a ripoff of CP/M.
Are they only watching like the people who mostly talk about Windows PCs are the gamers, the gamer enthusiasts? Because most businesses never talk about those are the people. A lot of gamers are also content creators. They stream and such, right? So they're also the people who are likely to review Windows and the PCs and such. So is this who's Microsoft's listening to? Because I guess if you're a gamer...
I think so.
Yeah, then if you like wasting your time, then sure! This UI is going to be absolutely perfect for you, and your reviews are going to look so stellar. Meanwhile, how about the people in the business sector that actually have crap to get done?
I don't know. Yeah, exactly, because these are... Exactly. Because, Microsoft still manages to get away with charging ridiculous prices for Office and Windows licenses, for goodness sakes.
Yes. I still keep getting comments on my Windows 11 rants claiming that, Apple does charge money for macOS. They just don't show that to you.
They don't charge money for the operating system itself. They charge for the hardware.
That's the thing most of these people don't understand. Literally, when you actually price out the bill of materials, the price of the hardware itself, well, okay, we're ignoring storage here, storage and RAM, because we know Apple's actually really bad at charging for upgrades to storage and RAM. But I'm talking like the base configuration. They all add up to the cost of the hardware. Apple always has been charging about market rates for what the hardware costs, even back in the Intel days. If you take a look at Linus's video of the 2017 iMac Pro, he broke down the entire cost of the components of that computer, and the total cost of the components was $5,200. And this is the base model configuration we're talking about here. What did the computer itself actually cost, the base configuration?
$5,000.
So technically, Apple was losing $200 plus more, because again, you got to remember, computers don't assemble and warranty themselves or support themselves. Apple was losing a lot of money on those things.
That's probably why they got rid of it.
I wouldn't be shocked. But even then, you take a look at all of their other products. Again, they charge about market rates for what all the components actually cost. So no, the operating system really doesn't cost us any money. It just costs Apple money. They're paying it up front so they can make great hardware and entice us with the sales of the great hardware.
Furthermore, if you install macOS, it's not technically allowed, but if you install macOS on non-Apple hardware, how much does the macOS cost? Nothing.
Yep, precisely. And you don't even get any of the activate your operating system BS that Microsoft gives you if you don't pay for a Windows license.
What does activating Windows even do?
Well, it gets rid of a watermark that's on your desktop.
That's literally the only thing it does, though. You're paying $130.
There's a few other things like... Oh, yeah. There's a few other things like having the ability to use Windows Hello and, I don't know, a password? Dude, you remember the BS I went through when it came to setting up my XPS? About the whole, I had to go to Microsoft.com and uncheck a... to sum it up, it really was pretty much, I hate you. Oh, what's this? Oh, my camera's low on battery. Let me plug it in. It was basically an I hate you box. I had to uncheck that just so I could secure the laptop, just so I could put a password on the desktop account.
That is ridiculous, as you don't have to do all that just to get a password on macOS.
Yeah. In fact, that's like one of the first things that you do. You create the local account. You don't even sign into an Apple ID first. No, you just create the local account. Then you sign into the Apple ID.
And furthermore, you don't have to use Apple devices with Apple IDs if you don't want to.
That is also very true. Except the Apple Watch. I think you need it to set that up.
Yeah, except for the Apple... I meant Apple's main products, like the iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch. And no, not the Apple Watch. The iPhone, iPad, and Mac. You don't need Apple IDs for them.
Don't need one for AirPods.
That's true.
So,
At least older
Microsoft.
Apple TVs, you don't need an Apple ID.
They don't got this. Microsoft, they don't got this. And the problem is, it doesn't matter what we say. They don't care. It doesn't matter how big of a stink we raise about it. They just flat out do not care.
I said this in last week's episode, and I'll say it again. If I ever, I'll say, if one of my, or I didn't say this exactly, but if one of my kids decides to grow up and become a Microsoft employee, I will probably disown them.
But what if they fix the company?
If they don't fix the company, then I will disown him or her. But knowing Microsoft, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, your child would
Also,
have to become
Microsoft
like the
could change-
CEO in order to fix the company.
Yeah, and another big problem with why Microsoft hasn't been fixed is because Bill Gates, even though he's technically stepped down from Microsoft CEO, he's still heavily involved in Microsoft because he still owns a lot of it. And Paul Allen, the other co-founder of Microsoft, or one of the other ones, I don't know how many there are, Paul Allen himself, he even stated that Windows is a horrible operating system. One of the co-founders of Microsoft doesn't like Windows.
It's saying something. Like, I proved this when it came to Samsung copying Apple's designs. How we called them out when the Galaxy Buds and the Watch copied the AirPods and Apple Watch Ultra. Yeah, apparently, Samsung's own CEO had agreed with us. And that's saying something. So, if a few co-founders of Microsoft are even agreeing, yeah, this is a pile of a steaming pile of you know what.
Yeah, let me
That's
actually
saying
see
something.
what. Yeah, Paul Allen was the other founder of. Well, Paul Allen is actually deceased now.
So, yeah, what do they care? They have no reason to. It's why I keep pushing everyone to switch to Apple. Because I want Microsoft to lose their market share so they get the idea, hey, something's broken. Because that's literally the only way they're going to fix it. They are too comfortable with where they are in the market right now. And they have no reason to change.
Microsoft is going to Microsoft is going to become kind of like Kmart. Sure, Microsoft's market share might be just fine now, but they're gonna start to fall if they don't start fixing their. Well, they already are declining.
Yeah, their hardware sales are down because people are starting to learn. Oh wait, no, Microsoft doesn't actually make that great of a product. You can't plug anything into them unless you use their stupid proprietary Surface connector, or whatever they call it. Then you have their attempts for ARM devices. Oh gosh, did they suck? Which makes no sense because, again, Microsoft has control over hardware and software. And yet they did nothing to make the devices run right. Just. Most people have been moving away from Office.
That's
I
very
can
true.
understand why. Yeah, most of you moved on to Google Docs. And then we know Windows is it's broken. The glass panes are missing. So what is there
Xbox
anything good they offer?
Xbox consoles aren't even Xbox isn't even doing that well right now.
I mostly hear people talk about PS5s and Nintendo Switches. I hardly hear Xbox anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not Microsoft. Something ain't working. How long is it going to take for you to realize that?
It's going to be too late. For Microsoft's market share has already been in deep decline since 2009. Or it's not that deep, but it's definitely the decline, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, especially if they continue at this.
Because even though Apple's not doing that much great stuff right now, at least their operating systems are not as bad as Microsoft's.
Yeah, I mean, the Mac updates are boring, both hardware and software right now. But, I mean, 2020 and 2021, that was the opportunity to steal market share. And I think Apple did a pretty darn good job with that when they came out with the Apple Silicon chips.
Yeah, as I became very interested in Macs I've always been interested in Macs, but I became even more. But it's just that this Apple Silicon transition is so enticing, and Apple really did it well.
Yep. So yeah, despite the macOS Sequoia, nothing very exciting. M4, the biggest highlight of the Silicon is just, oh, it supports more Apple BS features natively. Yay. Whatever that's supposed to mean.
Of course it does.
Yeah. Nothing exciting is going on right now, but I will still take this over whatever Windows doing, because
what's exciting going off Windows
operating system? They're shooting themselves in the foot.
Oh, yes, and on a similar note, there's this woman who interviewed Bill Gates that asked him, what have you done? Like, really, what have you done? Because think about it. Bill Gates is a whole nother can of worms, but what has Microsoft actually done?
Stolen property and made it big.
Huh?
Well, stolen property and made it big.
Yeah, like that's basically what Microsoft did, and that's not a good influence to say, hey, Microsoft stole property. I could just steal property too. Like, no, that's not. Now, granted, I should say that lawsuit, there was a lawsuit about that got settled in the previous millennium. So there's already been a lawsuit about that a long time ago, but even when the lawsuit was settled, Microsoft just had so much market share, and they just kept growing and growing. And now Microsoft basically has a really big stranglehold.
man, would it just be so nice if SolidWorks would come to the Mac.
Yeah.
It's
But even
hard.
then, like,
I want to love my XPS because the hardware is amazing. I mean, sure, it's on the inefficient Intel and NVIDIA platform, but I mean, that obvious drawback aside, the hardware is still pretty darn impressive. It's ruined by the software. It's ruined by Windows. And I can't buy any other laptop aside from a Mac that can give me as nice or nicer hardware and have a decent running operating system to operate it.
and I think another thing that a lot of PC makers are going to start doing is Linux possibly could Linux could become the default system for many PC makers.
I would
and
not
you know
be
what
shocked.
happens if Linux takes over and they manage to do all the optimization beforehand, then you know what's going to happen.
I wouldn't
Microsoft's going to have to go.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. Like, a lot of people don't like putting up with Apple's shenanigans and trying to get apps on macOS to run. But funny enough, Linux is completely open source.
Yes, it's completely open source, and furthermore, like, even though Linux fanboys might say like it's the best operating system for the average Joe, even though
That's
it's
not true.
not unless PC makers start shipping it as default. But you gotta give them credit as where it's due, because at least there's a hardworking, dedicated community that's dedicated to working on it and actually fixing it.
Yeah, and it'd be nice if this community were to actually make a proper version of Linux that is easy for the average Joe to understand and doesn't require going into the terminal. That's the second you mention terminal, you instantly lose the average Joe. They have no idea what terminal is. It's a foreign concept to them. So as long as we can start doing things completely through a graphical user interface, no terminal, no strange, weird coding involved, then Linux, I have a feeling, would start to take off.
I mean, Android is technically a build of Linux.
That is true. And look how popular Android is. I mean, their market share has been declining because, if you ask me, they haven't been doing anything interesting as of late. But that's a whole separate
because
issue.
of the phones just becoming.
Yeah.
That's the hardware, not the software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Android itself is really good.
Yeah, I actually like Android itself as a system. It's just that I don't like. It's just that I don't like how. Well, first of all, I don't like how iOS and Android are kind of merging into one. Like, I think they should be their own things.
Yeah, well, we know who to blame for that. Europe.
Yeah, and I'm going to a European Union country the summer.
Yeah, I'm currently Google Street viewing my way through Europe at the moment, actually. Started in London, England, headed to Paris, France, then to the Nürburgring in Germany. Now I'm on my way. I'm still in Germany at the moment, but I'm on my way up through. Gonna head through Denmark. Yep, that's the country. Sweden, and then Norway.
Europe, to be honest, is kind of like the big difference between Europe and the United States is that Europe is kind of like the United States, but if every state, the state had a completely different government and language.
Effectively.
Or I mean, I know the U.S. has different state governments, but imagine if every U.S. state was was a completely independent country and had completely different languages.
That almost happened, by the way.
I mean, that almost happened twice, because I mean, back in the days of Native Americans, yeah, that was basically what the United States was kind of like. But there is substantial evidence to suggest that if the Confederacy actually won the American Civil War, that all the states would have become their own countries after that, which is suggested by the fact that there were 3 federal capitals of the Confederacy.
So then how do you have 2 Georgias?
Huh?
How do you have 2 Georgias? Because there's a Georgia in Europe, and then we have the state Georgia.
They would probably work that out. They would probably work that out somehow, but yeah, because there was a federal, there was a federal capital in Montgomery, one in Richmond, and then one in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
Yeah, one thing I've had noticed straight viewing my way through Europe, it is so much easier to navigate through road signs there, despite the different language barriers, but it is easier to figure out where your exit is, where your turn is in Europe than it is in the United States.
Well, that's what a shock, because in the United States, now granted, this varies depending on state, but the biggest issue with the United States is guide signs. Is that I like the way U.S. signs look, but now granted, there are some states that post the appropriate cities on interstate control cities, which for those of you who don't know, they're basically like the sign. So here's an example. Let's say you're on, what's a good example? Let's say you're on I-75 in the UP. The southbound control city, which technically isn't a city, is the Mackinac Bridge. The northbound control city is Sault Ste. Marie. Now, granted, the Mackinac Bridge, I don't know if I would post that as control city. I would probably do Saginaw.
I'm still trying to figure out what the heck a control city is.
So it's like the signs that they post. It's just, a control city is the technical term for sign for guides for cities that guide signs direct to. On the highway.
I should know this because again, I drive that route all the time.
I've looked it up and I believe it's Mackinac Bridge in the UP, and then northbound, and then once you get south of there, the control city changes to Saginaw, and then Flint, and then Detroit on I-75.
I thought it was Grayling.
And then Toledo once you get Grayling, and they
probably it was either Gaylord or Grayling.
Okay. Again, that's another problem. Is that who outside Michigan actually knows where those places are? Like, that's a big problem on interstate control cities, because for local roads, okay, I get it. Most of the time, just locals driving on there, but a big problem with this is in I-70 in Kansas, when they post all, in between Denver and Topeka on I-70, they post all these weird control cities on that, like Hayes, Kansas, Lehman, Colorado.
Lyman.
Just because they have, like, minor... Lyman, yeah, just because they have junctions with other U.S. highways, which is a little bit annoying because no one outside of that area knows where those cities are. So they don't have a good idea of where the general highway, what direction the highway is generally going. And thinking of more southern examples, Florida isn't the best for, on I-95 between Jacksonville and Miami, it posts Daytona Beach as a control city, which... I know Daytona Beach is famous, so I would say just post Jacksonville and Miami and then have secondary ones. And then this is really annoying now. On I-75 in Georgia and Florida, they post Valdosta as a control city in between Macon and Tampa, and then Lake City, which is where I-75 and 10 meet. Even though they should probably just have it be Macon and Tampa.
One would think.
Oh, and then, North Carolina, you think that's bad? At least Valdosta's a kind of a regional. At least they're kind of Valdosta and Lake City are kind of regional. No, but try North Carolina. You don't want to know what North Carolina's interstate control cities are.
I'm trying to remember going.
So on I-40,
No,
once you get
let me think. Let me think.
so
Let me think. Because again, I both street through that, and I took a trip down there once. Let me think.
yeah.
What do I see? It's either going east. I think it's Hickory.
Who outside North Carolina knows about Hickory unless you look at a map?
Yeah, you have to look at a map to know where that is. Yeah, I
And
believe
then
it's
after
Hickory.
that, and then from far away, cities like on signs or interstate signs on I-240, they show Statesville, which is where I-40 and 77 meet. Why would you post Hickory and Statesville when you could post Winston-Salem, which is an actual metropolitan area?
Could just say Raleigh as well. Raleigh or Greensboro.
Raleigh's too far. No, I would say I would say on I-40 in North Carolina for at least for primary ones. Post Asheville because Asheville is the biggest city in its region.
Yep.
Then Winston-Salem, then Greensboro, then Durham, then Raleigh, because Durham's pretty famous for like being part of the Research Triangle, and then I would say Wilmington.
Yeah, come to notice, where does Charlotte fit on any of these?
Charlotte's not on I-40.
Oh yeah, you're just focusing on I-40. Charlotte's through
Yeah, I'm just
I-85. Yeah,
I-85 and I-77.
Yeah, right. I-77 runs through there too. Yeah, that's
So, and you think North Carolina's bad about control cities? Well, Virginia is just as bad as North Carolina, but South Carolina is not great either. Pennsylvania is even worse.
Oh yeah, yep. I remember street through my way through there. It was real bad.
Because like on I-80 in Pennsylvania, the control cities for westbound I-80 should be Youngstown, then eastbound near New York City. Those should be the control cities. But they're instead really, really small towns.
Yep.
Now, on I-81 too, they have a whole bunch of random ones, even though the control cities logically should be, let me think. Oh yeah, Harrisburg and then Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. That would make sense for 81. And then 95, obviously Philadelphia.
Oh yeah. Though I don't think it's actually the control city. It's just in Europe. I think the thing that makes it most easy to understand is on their signs, they show an actual image of what the exit looks like. In fact, the roundabouts, they give you a really good description about the general directions that each road goes in on the roundabout and where they head. That is not the case in the U.S. at all. In the U.S., for the most part, basically you pick a lane, and depending on which lane you're in, that's what it takes you to do that. But I don't know, I just like the way that European signs describe where you're going, where this exit takes you, and such. And just, I think this also has to do with because the fact that Europe has a ton of languages they need to work with, and so they did such a great job with their imaging depictions. So that way, it doesn't matter what language you speak. You can figure out where the heck you're going.
That's true, because in America, all the road signs are English, so you don't have to worry about. And so as a result, you can generally just post like, funny enough, this is actually a little bit annoying, is that most states don't actually post the distance of how far a city is on a guide sign, except for Iowa and Tennessee, they do.
Well, what do you mean by that?
So, in Iowa and Tennessee, so let's say you're approaching a local road, or like one of those two-lane, just any highway. Now, and so you know how it'll often tell you like which direction, which cities or communities that highway is headed to.
Yeah.
They actually give you miles for distances of how far away those cities are.
Michigan and Wisconsin have those too, by the way.
Yeah, Michigan and Wisconsin. They all, yeah, many states don't do them, but some states do.
Yeah, in fact, on my way out of town, the first thing I see is a sign that reads Marquette, 99 miles away.
Well, that's kind of a different one. That's once you get on the road, like it tells you a distance. That's common in all states, but it's not. But it's not common to tell you like what road you're turning onto, like how far away the cities are on the road you're turning onto. Like that's what I was talking about more, but I didn't explain that well, so.
Yeah. I'd say the funniest thing. I keep laughing every time I pass an exit sign in Germany. It's just too funny.
It's also the exit signs are also blue, which, mind you, for America, blue road signs typically mean either there's a hospital,
Usually
or
it's
there's an
actually a point of
emergency, or
interest,
else
actually.
blue exit signs are typically for like naming stuff off of exits, hospitals, or depict showing emergencies.
Well, that's not even the funniest thing about German exit signs. It's the word that's on them.
What is it?
I kid you not. The actual translation from to say exit in German, Ausfahrt.
Ausfahrt. Ausfahrt.
So every time you go by an exit sign in Germany, Ausfahrt. Ausfahrt. Oh, it's the funniest.
Of course,
shit
German
ever.
people don't think it's funny, but
Yeah, I'm sure the Germans don't think it's that funny, but
they probably think exit sounds funny though.
oh, there's a lot of English words that probably sound funny.
Although you know the word for stop in German is Achtung. Well, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but Achtung is the way you say stop in German. And oh yeah, 9 is how you say no in German, which that sounds a little bit weird for English speakers because 9 is a number.
Yep.
And then how you say yes in German is actually ja, which
Oh, right. I forgot
makes
the
sense
charge
that-
port doesn't work. I just got another notification saying your battery's at 10%. I'm like, what? I plugged it in. How is that
Yes,
possible? Then I realized, oh, right. The charge port doesn't work.
on your iPhone 13 Pro Max.
Yeah. So let's try sticking this thing here. And it disappeared. Good. All right. It's charging now.
All right, and another German words. Oh yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. Like, have you ever read the book The Book Thief?
Nope.
We had to read that for school. I had to read that for school, and they mentioned, and because and the book was about Germans, and it was about, and they mentioned like a lot of German words in there that were. And I learned, so as a result, I learned a few German insults, but I don't know how profane they are, so I'm not going to say them.
Let's not. Yeah, let's not make the
Yeah.
same mistake that the Genius Bar podcast made.
What did the Genius Bar podcast do other than John Prosser revealing himself?
They had invited a German guest on, and to celebrate the invitation of the guest, Sam wanted to play the German national anthem. He ended up playing the Nazi
Oh,
national anthem.
Germans, that's one of the most racist things you can do to Germans.
Yeah. Oops.
I'm surprised they didn't cut that out.
I actually wondered if they did or not. I don't remember. I just remember their next episode, Sam was he was so embarrassed for his mistake. I mean, at the same time, I can't blame him because in part he just Google searched German national anthem and that's what he got. He ended up somehow getting the Nazi one, not even knowing it. So, yeah, that's an embarrassing mistake. Still, their exit sign is the best. I love their exit signs. They're just hilarious. Oh, it is too funny.
Do you have anything more to talk about?
I am so dry on news. I legit don't know what else to talk about.
Neither do I, but I have a feeling that that even though we don't have a lot of news for this episode, somehow next week we might not be able to record, and then we're gonna have a ton of news that just keeps piling up because that's what seems to happen after we have a podcast episode of like very little news. Because when that happens, then afterwards we get a podcast episode usually more than a week later. With a whole butt ton of news.
iPadOS getting better, hopefully.
Maybe we'll discuss that in the next TIFP episode. I don't know.
I think I made a big mistake. I don't know. Come February. I have to figure out how the heck I'm supposed to do this.
Oh, yeah. This is a topic that I guess we could talk about.
Yeah, so in February for 28 days, I'm gonna completely power down the MacBook Pro, probably hide it under my bed or something, I don't know, and rely off of this device to do my YouTube work, because I still need my XPS for my other day job and such.
Even TIFP.
Yes. That will get into...
Oh boy, I remember. This actually reminds me of back when I was in 6th grade, and mind you, in 6th grade, because most of my work was done via Zoom and Google Docs, I could switch my devices around that I used. So let me get. So back when I was in 6th grade, I actually used my iPad Pro 9 at 7 inches and my iPad 7th generation I tried using them for my Zoom meetings in school, 6th grade, because I had the keyboard case for my 7th gen, so it ideally would work, and the same keyboard would work for my iPad Pro 9 at 7 inches. It just wouldn't fit. So in theory, it would be great. So in theory, it was a good idea because I use my iPad for everything else. However, Zoom had this problem back then. I don't know if they still have this. Because I haven't used Zoom since May of 2021, but they had a problem where as soon as I had to do Slido to go into another app, which again I had to do frequently because, I had to open up stuff in Google Classroom. Every time that would happen, my video feed would shut off.
Yeah.
So it would be audio only.
Yeah, that gets annoying.
There's only one problem with that. My school, because mandated that you keep your camera on at all times. Therefore, I couldn't keep using my iPads for virtual meetings.
Dude, this is gonna be a pain. I'm also probably going to subscribe to the Final Cut for iPad for just 1 month. See, did it improve from the last time I reviewed it, which was like over a year and a half ago at this point.
Oh yeah, because I forgot. Apple has decided to be extra generous and bring down the Final Cut Pro to the iPad 2.
Yes, that.
Yeah, which I made a whole skit about, but seriously. Which, no, Apple did not bring Final Cut Pro to the iPad 2. Just rebrand the update for Final Cut Pro for the iPad, Final Cut Pro for iPad 2. And I took that joke and ran with it.
Yeah.
Because it seriously does sound like Apple is giving the iPad Air 2, Final Cut Pro. But it also reminds me of this ad that used to be in my area a few years ago. It's not now, but let me go to my Instagram to find this. Because I will say, it is easy to find my old posts on Instagram, which is one of the reasons why I like it. Just gotta do some scrolling. What was I even looking for again? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember. I'm now down to 2021, now in 2020. So it was this sign right here that, I don't know if you can see it, but it said advertised, this is a car wash, and advertised Wednesday, senior citizens get $2 off. It didn't say it was a wash for a car, though.
What was it?
It just said Wednesday, senior citizens get $2 off at a car wash. So you know what that makes it sound like? The seniors could get $2 off on their wash.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so still, editing's gonna be a nightmare. I mean, I don't script, so I don't have to worry about that. But
yeah, I do script, so.
And I do the most advanced editing out of all of us here. We all probably can agree on that.
Yeah, you definitely do, because I mean, my video editing, like, I actually haven't done updated video on how I edit my videos.
One of these days, I just want to do another live stream where I just stream my whole process of editing. I just wish I had an internet connection that would let me do it.
I have an internet connection that lets me live stream, but yeah, I don't ever take advantage of it. Just because I don't like live streaming. Because the issue of live streaming is that if something were to suddenly happen, it's live. There's no cutting it out.
Yep. That's why we pre-record the shows and we don't do them live. Because we don't want a John Prosser situation.
TIFP. Oh yeah, wasn't that time they went live? Wasn't it that time that John Prosser revealed some of his parts that we didn't want to see?
He tried to blur the camera. I give him credit for that, but still.
How did that even happen in the first place? Like, how did John Prosser get to the point where he had to blur the camera?
They had some sort of merch drop that involved a postcard with Sam not wearing a shirt, John not wearing pants, and I guess he took it quite literal to the point where he wasn't even wearing underpants. And so their deal was if the merch completely sold out on stream, the stream where Sam was wearing no shirt and John wasn't wearing pants. They were
They
supposed to
would
do
do-
some sort of Jurassic Park or Jurassic World stomping dance or whatever. I don't know. And, well, they sold out on stream, and guess what John did?
Oh, yeah. John Prosser didn't even think to, like, have pants on hand just in case.
He thought blurring the camera would be enough to do it, except he hit the autofocus button instead of the blur button.
So, in other words, he had it focus on his private parts.
Yep, and unfortunately, I was there to witness the whole thing unfold.
Did they get banned from live streaming?
I don't know if they got banned from live streaming, but I think that was the last time. They both just agreed that's the last time they're live streaming like that. Yeah, they did a for one of the Apple events. I think Vision Pro or something like that. I don't know, but they did some event in Los Angeles with Luke Miani and Noah Rubin, the Dark Mode podcast crew. They did a live in person.
Oh yeah,
And this is after John Prosser no pants thing happened. So they've streamed again.
With that though, that wasn't a stream though. As what they did with Genius Bar Goes Dark. I remember what they did with that is they had like the in-person event, and then they recorded it so everyone else could get to see it.
So, yeah, that unfortunately was a thing.
Yeah, and Crazy Ken from the Computer Clan was actually there at Genius Bar Goes Dark, but I think that was in San Francisco though. Because I know Ken went to San Francisco. Crazy Ken went to San Francisco.
Oh wait, yeah, it probably wasn't San Fran, right? Because that's where Apple's based. So of course, I don't know, somewhere in California. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
L.A., San Diego, San Francisco—they're all the same to me. Great places to tour.
Yeah,
terrible places to live.
Yeah, I've actually looked at a map, so I actually know how far apart they are. So I know the difference between those three cities.
Oh yeah, I've street viewed my way through them before.
Yeah, like the first, second, and fourth largest cities in California. Because San Jose is actually the third largest city in California. That's right by San Francisco.
I still don't understand why anybody would want to live there.
My guess is that they have family there. They probably have family there, jobs, and whatnot that they still want to stay loyal to.
It's just a nightmare.
I don't know. I didn't think it was possible. Yeah, imagine. Yeah, like I know it's bad for California to get wildfires as often as they do, but at the same time, like, it's just hard to care. Care is not the right word, but it's hard to really pay that much attention because I'm like, oh yeah, California has wildfires. Okay, because California gets wildfires. Well, it feels like every couple years.
Yeah, they get wildfires like we get blizzards. And like Florida gets hurricanes.
Yeah. Really, I would expand that to the whole Gulf Coast, but yeah. You get wildfires like that, except most of the wildfires there are man-made.
True. Even then, it's
At least
just... I think... I'm poor right now. I can't imagine how poor I'd be if I was living in California right now.
People generally get paid more in California, though, but, I mean, still...
Well, they have to, because everything's so freaking expensive there.
Yeah.
Homes,
hey, you want to know a funny thing about
food,
sad thing?
Everything.
You want to know a sad thing about California? California actually has law. California state, there's no state laws in California that prohibit smoking in public places.
Might explain why there's a whole bunch of stupid people there.
Yeah, now granted, that California is not the only state, for there are several states like Texas and Kentucky that also don't have that. And there are many other states all across the U.S. that don't have a problem with that don't have no smoking in public laws. They leave it up to the individual businesses. But the only problem with that is you can have people smoking everywhere in California. I don't know about you, but I thought secondhand smoke was very unhealthy.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah, exactly. So why isn't the California government doing anything a step about that? Especially because, I don't know, less smoking everywhere would help, not have as many causes for wildfires.
Might also help decrease the CO2 emissions.
It actually would. Like, decreasing smoking actually does help with that, believe it or not.
Because, yeah, like this state is probably the single most obsessed state with the whole carbon neutrality BS and such. Like, okay, if you're that obsessed, why do you permit smoking?
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to ban gas cars from the road? Dude, what about your people actually smoking?
Yeah, like, and I'm not just talking like California lets people smoke weed everywhere, because yes, they do that, but also like tobacco. The individual businesses do, but the California state law doesn't regulate where you can smoke tobacco either.
Well, Michigan practically doesn't even regulate marijuana anymore.
Yeah, luckily, yeah. Dude, do you think that? Yeah, that's kind of sad, because at least there are some states that are recognizing, hey, we should not legalize marijuana.
Get me out of this state. Get me out of Michigan.
Because, did you know that smoking marijuana is actually 6 times more damaging than tobacco?
Smoking anything is infinitely times more damaging than not.
Exactly. But that just goes to show you how bad marijuana truly is. Yeah.
It's bad.
And we're way off topic!
Of course.
This is like probably the least Apple episode. This is probably the episode with the least amount of stuff
about
Apple.
There's no news, though. There's basically nothing. Yeah.
It's the winter of our discontent, as Shakespeare said.
I feel like John and... It's just like John and Sam during their dry seasons. They come up with all sorts of BS to talk about anything other than Apple when there's no news.
Exactly, and the thing I like about this podcast is that even though there isn't always that much tech news, at least you can still talk. Like there's still, like at least we can manage to make tech news, that what little tech news there is seem funny.
And then we tried to bring in
or interesting.
Yeah, then we bring in the EV news and try to classify that as tech. I mean, technically everything is technology.
It is technically tech, but I mean, TIFP, FYI, this did not start out as an EV podcast. This is strictly a tech podcast at first.
We just started with an EV topic because there's no Apple news.
We actually started with that first. We didn't start out with that first because most of back when I had a lot of guests, they were all tech people and not EV people. And furthermore, like me and Tabby were also still, we were younger back when TIP started, so we weren't quite old enough to be into cars. And also, because the Random Alpha podcast was about both tech and EVs.
Yeah, I'm the guilty one for bringing EV talk to the show. Everybody knows that.
As a result, like there's definitely a lot of TIP that was brought over from the Random Alpha podcast.
I think you mean the other way around, but okay.
There's a lot of stuff in this show that was, or what I meant to say was that there's a lot of stuff in this show that was brought over from the Random Alpha podcast.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
Dry seasons, you gotta love them. And yet, I still don't understand. I'm gaining more subscribers on the Gadgets channel, and I mean, to say I have no passion in tech, that's not true. I still have a love for gadgets and such. It's just there is nothing exciting going on in this space. When everyone wants to focus on AI, I'm sorry, it's not exciting.
I know. I discussed that in one of my recent videos called Tay Maggart versus the iTunes fanboy. I discussed that same well, it wasn't just that problem. I discussed that tech news is getting so boring that literally, I would say the biggest thing keeping my channel alive at this point is my podcast.
I'd say you're being generous with that statement, because if you take a look at the subscriber count and the views that we get.
Or I think what I should say is this podcast is the only thing really. This podcast is the main factor that keeps my passion for tech alive.
Because, yeah, dude, it is hard. It is so painfully difficult to be a tech enthusiast right now. I have to default to EVs right now. I just have to. They're the only ones doing something interesting in the space right now. Now, if Microsoft were to get their act together and actually fix Windows, then okay, maybe I'd start coming back more to this side of the enthusiast fence.
And furthermore, a big problem is that they're I focus a lot on legacy devices on my channel, but there's only so much you can do with that with legacy devices, because they don't change.
Nope. They don't. I've been trying to come up with various other tech-related challenges that I've wanted to do. The problem is they require time, and that is the one thing that I just do not have, because the biggest privilege I see with being a bigger channel is you now have more time to actually make these videos, because if YouTube's paying you, you can financially support yourself, and then you have more time to make great videos. I'm just not there. I have to dedicate most of my time at my 9 to 5 so I can afford to sustain myself, and I have to squeeze in whatever I can for this. It's hard.
I know, and I have that same problem too. Now, granted, mine isn't entirely my own fault, because again, the government does mandate that I go to that I go to school, and I'll actually mention this thing in the chat, because I probably shouldn't mention this in the podcast, but basically I'm forced to go to school, and dropping out isn't necessarily the best idea. So in other words, I'm basically stuck doing this podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're forced to go until you reach whatever. I don't remember if it's an age or
16.
a grade. But yeah, there comes a point where you can drop out, but still, I highly recommend against it. You're really limiting your career opportunities if you drop out.
You really are. You really are, which again is why I'm staying in school. But at the same time, it's so hard for me to come up with time to do. It's not only so hard for me these days to actually come up with time to make great videos.
Well, even that, you've at least got a number. You produce more a week than I do.
I mean, I do that, but I'm able to do that, but at the same time, because my videos are relatively simple.
Yeah, they're relatively simple. You've got your process straight down. I'd say your hardest thing is just coming up with the video idea in the first place.
Yeah. Exactly, and part of the reason why I do that is I can industrialize my channel a little more to be efficient.
Yeah. I have great ideas in mind. I do not have time anymore just to make them.
I know, right? One of the biggest things. Again, I talked about this in my Tay Maggart versus the iTunes fanboy video. One thing I can't do these days is I don't have time necessarily to devote to downgrade and jailbreak tutorials, because even though they look relatively simple videos to make, they are not.
Yep.
Simple to make, because you have to do so much. Because you have to.
I bet it involves a lot of trial and error too.
because you gotta, first of all, find a method that works, which, believe me, that's very hard.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years to find a method that works for the iPhone 3G. It took me a year and a half to find a method that works with the first generation iPhone, downgraded it to iOS 1.
You remember the Black
Or
Book
Formula One
project that
techno-
I had in 2020? Was it 2021 or 2022?
Two, yeah.
Yeah.
2022,
That
yeah.
took me
'Cause it was
quite a
after
long
I got
time
mine.
just to get an operating system installed on the Black Book.
I know, right? It took such a... And so there's so much trial and error that has to be done that I just simply don't have time for. And again, with jailbreaks, it's kind of that same deal. And then once I got... And then I actually have to get... And then I have to actually test the method one more time just to make sure it works. And I got to document it. And then I got to film the video and hope that nothing goes wrong with. Which actually, I have had errors during the production of downgrade tutorials. I've had those happen. I've had to work around those. It's just such a pain for me to do. Like, people all the time ask me, like, why don't you test out this new jailbreak tweak? Why don't you test out, like, this method of jailbreak? Why don't you test out this new method of downgrading? And it's like, it's because I don't have the time, and I'm not willing to risk possibly losing my devices to higher iOS versions anymore. Because I remember actually in late 2023, in August 2023, when I made a video about what the oldest version of iOS, the oldest iPhone, the AirPods Pro 2 connect to. I updated because they won't work on any firmware below iOS 4.2. I had to update my iPhone 3G from iPhone OS 2 to iOS 4.2.1. And so naturally I did that because that iOS 4.2 supports AirPlay audio, which is necessary in order to use AirPods.
You couldn't use the regular Bluetooth signal?
Yeah. But basically, so I made that video, and then afterwards I couldn't downgrade it back to iPhone OS 2 because I kept getting errors in iTunes, despite following my own method. So I had to try, and I think it took me like until November. It wasn't until November 2023 that I managed to successfully downgrade my iPhone 3G iOS 2.0 or iPhone OS 2.0 because again, I had school I had to focus on, so I didn't have quite as much, and I have family too, so I have other things I need to focus on, so I just had to kind of put that to a back seat. And another time was back in February 2022 when I went with iOS 9 for a week as part of my first collaborations with Tabby. And hang on, let me find that phone. I updated this iPhone from iOS 6.1.3 to 9.3.6, I believe, for that video. In February 2022. Do you want to know how long it took me to get that phone back on iOS 6?
My guess is it involved a lot more than 24 hours.
I didn't get it back on iOS 6 until October 2023. Now, granted, I was not devout in trying that hard, mind you. It's not like I was necessarily trying that hard, but the biggest problem I had every time was that Phoenix jailbreak tool for iOS 9 just simply refused to sideload the app. And I've since found out that's because my Apple ID is listed under my real age, which is under 18, which is a big factor in that. But yeah, that was just such a big problem. And then I couldn't use 3 tools because they kept stealing my Apple ID password, so I had to change it every time because Apple kept flagging it. Which, to be honest, putting your Apple ID into password into 3 tools isn't a good idea anyway.
Yeah, that's always a bad idea.
And so as a result, it just took me that took me forever. And then I've been trying since July 2022 to get my iPad Air 1 and iPad Mini 2 downgraded to iOS 10.3.3. Because you can do that, apparently. But I have still had no luck with that. And I've tried multiple times over those now almost 3 years just to get that working. But it's just, again, like I just haven't had that much time because of in-person school. And even when I'm out of school for long periods of time, I kind of need that time to decompress from school and then actually get started, which is why oftentimes, especially in the summer of 2024, I didn't get into downgrading until later in the summer vacation. And it'll be kind of this, and really until later in summer vacation when I actually had time to mess with my old tech. And it'll be kind of the same this summer vacation too, but maybe a little longer because I'm going to Europe at the beginning of towards the beginning of summer, so I'm not going to be messing around with tech. Well, I mean I'll be messing around with my daily tech, but not any old tech unless I buy some in Europe. Actually, maybe I should get like some old European Apple devices while I'm there.
Could try.
Oh my gosh! I just realized something I could buy it. Or try to get if they let me go to a used store, tech store. I could try to find one of those 4 GB iPod Nano 4th generations, because those were not only do I not have a Nano 4th generation, but the 4 GB ones were only sold in Europe.
So that'd be a rare specimen.
Yeah, I could bring one of those back. And I would also just like to own an EU iPhone just so I could do videos comparing the differences between an EU and an American iPhone.
Buy the brand new iPhone 16 in Europe. See how it compares to the iPhone 16 today. That's another thing. You unboxed a 16, right?
Yes, I unboxed an iPhone 16 Pro Max.
Unfortunately, I haven't had time to watch it just yet, so I guess I have to ask how. What were your impressions of it?
So it's not my phone; it's my mom's.
Okay, I figured that much.
Yeah, or else I would have talked about it a lot more, and also I would probably wouldn't have gotten white, but so far I really like I kind of like that phone. It's a little big for me, but I kind of like that. However, my mom hasn't set that up yet. So she's going to set that up tomorrow once her case comes, because she's really nervous about using her phone caseless, which, I mean, I kind of get that.
Yeah.
I would set up caseless anyway, but that's just me.
Is the phone finally not as heavy?
It feels maybe a little bit lighter.
Because I know that's the reason. If I recall, the reason why you and Tabby both get the smaller variants is because weight is a factor, a big one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just more physical size, so I can fit this thing in my pocket. But yeah, weight's a little bit of a factor in that too.
Yeah, I keep thinking
But
about.
oh yeah, tomorrow in my video, I started scripting an iPod Shuffle retrospective for my iPod Shuffle first generation. However, my mom's M4 Pro, I think MacBook Pro came today. So guess what I'm going to be doing for tomorrow's video?
Oh, she's finally ditching Intel.
Finally! And mind you, Apple Silicon Macs were out when she got her Intel Mac.
Yeah, that's a bit overdue.
Yes.
She's probably
Her
gonna
computer
feel
is also black though.
Yeah, she's probably gonna feel so dumb when she realizes the amazing battery life improvements. Oh, and the fact that you don't have to plug it into the wall to get full power.
I know, right? Because a big thing that bothers me is that because she thought the 2019 Mac Pro was passable, she got me this computer. My parents got me this computer for my birthday because my mom's like everyone else. The adults in my family generally trust my mom more for tech because she's been doing a lot of tech stuff, and she actually has done coding and soldering in the past. So as a result, my parents got me that 2019 MacBook Pro for Christmas for my 14th birthday, excuse me. And they spent almost as much money as a 60-inch M1 MacBook Pro would have cost. And my mom thought that, I would like it because of the touch bar. Because I like the touch bar. However,
I mean, hey, the touch bar is pretty nice. I still really wish that my laptop had it.
So do I, but but the problem was that was basically, because that was Intel, it was so obsolete. It already felt obsolete like the moment I got it, and my grandmother could even tell my review for that thing that I was not impressed with it. And less than 2 years later, I saved up for a new computer anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the previous Intel MacBook Pro, that design language, that still feels more futuristic than whatever we have with the Apple Silicon
Oh,
versions of them.
I like that too.
It really is a more futuristic
another
design, but I mean, I'd say from a performance perspective, it was probably fine, especially for the type of video editing you do. You don't really do anything that difficult. I'd say the biggest issue is just the fans when podcasting.
Yeah.
And the battery life.
I didn't have
obviously.
that. I didn't have that much. I mean, I didn't need it, but it's just that but it's just primarily that they just got me a more obsolete architecture, and I didn't know how long it would last. And then once I started doing, I tried to do a podcast episode on that 2019 MacBook Pro, and I could not do hype clips on that computer, and I could not even use Final Cut Pro on that computer. However, I can on this machine. But in other news, it is 7:59 p.m. where I am, so
that means it's just about 9 o'clock here.
which means it's about time to end the show.
Yep. I just realized.
So as always, thank you all for. What'd you say?
Just one quick thing left.
What is that?
You might have noticed I've been gaining a few pounds or so.
What are you gonna do anything about that? Or are you gonna become fat?
This, along with a few other accessories in the bag. This is my last Christmas present. It just came in late.
Oh boy.
So this is a board with detachable handles, and you can change their orientation and their position to exercise different muscles in your body. And then there's a couple metal mounting points. The handle's kind of covering it, but you can use those to attach resistance bands and do a bunch of other strength training.
Have you used it yet?
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm probably going to use
basis?
it right after we finish recording. But oh my goodness, it's just last year I weighed myself, and I was close to 170 pounds. Someone my size, again, I'm short, I'm not very tall at all. Someone my size should be closer to 140 pounds. So yeah, I'm 30 pounds overweight.
And you don't even eat that unhealthy compared to me. I mean, my diet isn't horrible, but it's definitely not the best. But as a result, I'm around 250 pounds, but when I started lifting weights and just riding my bike, which I'll show you proof that I lift. This is a 50-pound dumbbell. Yeah, I can lift. I need to go up in weights though. Although again, that would involve going to the gym, and so it's hard to buy weights at home, and that just I need to figure something else out. But
so yeah, hopefully I lose 30 pounds. My goal is to lose 30 pounds by the end of 2025.
Because this might have also been because I had to run quite a lot in gym back in 8th grade. But
oh yeah, true.
But in 2021, in late 2021, early 2022, I was getting up to around 280 to 300 pounds. By the summer of 2023, I weighed myself and I was around 250 pounds. I lost 30 pounds. And another factor was probably that I stopped drinking anything else besides water. But yeah, you should, if you exercise regularly, losing 30 pounds shouldn't be that hard. But shall we sign off now?
That's the thing, though. I don't exercise regularly because I don't often have time to. So, I just noticed. I compared myself quite often between older videos and my latest videos. I look so much better in my older videos. I do. So.
Hopefully that thing will help a little bit at least. And in the summertime you can bike too, because...
Yeah, this summer I officially plan on converting my bike to an e-bike so I can finally get up those hills.
Yeah, that's pretty... Yeah, I have a bike. I have a manual bike at my house. I ride in my backyard, and I can basically ride that anytime except for January and February.
I have a fun idea for my bike when I convert it to an e-bike. I'm going to make it charge off of EV charging stations.
That is cool.
I'm gonna
That
make
would
it
be
do
so
that.
Cool.
All right, that's it. I'm
Make sure
done.
you-
Get it. Close this out before I come up with another idea.
All right. As always, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the iTunes Fan Podcast. As always, I'm Teddy Magger from the iTunes Fanboy.
My name is Dr. Wolf from the Random Alpha.
And as always, we're signing off for now. And as always, we shall see you all in the next episode, hopefully with more news.
Yes, more news, please. Alrighty.